You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Friday, the 8th of September. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Freedman.
And I'm Clare Stevens.
And on the show today, free bleeding is all over the internet. Literally. It's letting your flow, the logical endpoint of period pride. And are you a soft troll? The answer is almost certainly yes. And we wrap up the week with best and worst, which include sitting down shoes, burnout and dads. But first, Mia Freedman.
In case you missed it, women called Karen, and I know there are a lot of Out Louders called Karen, well, you've been vindicated because a list of the top names of people most likely to complain has been released, and Karen's not on it.
Yay!
You know who's at the top of the list? David.
Ew, no, David.
David is not happy Jan. New figures have analysed 1-star reviews. So that's how they've worked out. Like the people who leave a 1-star review on a site called Trustpilot, and they've analysed tens of thousands of 1-star reviews over the last 15 years. And they've found that men called David, or maybe just a couple of very angry Davids who are leaving lots of reviews, have left more negative reviews than anyone else.
Oh, you're like a big dirty raccoon, David.
This is the list, right? So they've done 15. It goes David, Paul, John, Chris, Mark, James. Okay, so no women at all. Then Sarah makes an appearance at number 8. Steve, Michael, Andrew, Peter, Richard, Sam, and then Emma, unexpectedly, at number 14, and Alex at number 15, which could be male or female, I guess.
Yeah. This surprised me because I was certain there'd be a Bill or a Bob. They're very complaining.
Hey, leave Bill alone. I've got a Bill.
But they're very complaining names to me personally. Did you notice the tone of this article was very like, these are the people businesses need to listen to, the people leaving 1-star reviews. And it's like, well, when it's a Karen, we all make fun of her for complaining.
Yeah, so
but when it's David, apparently his grievances are very legitimate.
Someone was free bleeding all over my Instagram this week. I opened the app and there was a very glamorous woman dancing at a music festival with blood all down her leg. This is what went on in my brain when I saw that picture. I went, ew. And then I went, no, Holly, remember, there's nothing wrong with period blood. It's the most natural thing in the world. And we have rewritten the rules of period shame. And now girls and women don't have to pretend that it's blue tinted water that leaks out of them once a month. And isn't that marvellous? And then my brain went, ew. Then I started seeing stories around everywhere about free bleeding, probably because I stopped too long looking at the bloody leg on my Instagram. Here is a little grab of what free bleeding sounds like on social media.
I need all of the free bleeders to come to the front. How exactly does that work?
Free bleeding is definitely not for everyone. I will definitely say that. I didn't think it was for me until I started doing it.
I only do it at home, okay? Before anyone comes at me for that. I'm not bleeding on public things. I don't really leave the house. Just bleeding on things in my own house. And on things, I mean my underwear.
Why?
I'll tell you why. It's a bit of a pride movement on social free bleeding, and it's about a few things. It's about this movement to not use what they term obstructive period products like tampons or moon cups. In some corners, this is a bit of an anti-capitalist protest because it's saying, you know, this is an unfair tax on women to have to buy this stuff. And then there's also other corners that believe that it's unnatural. So a radical free bleeder might not even use period pants, but a sort of more mainstream free bleeder would use period pants when they're out and about, but at home, they'll stay home and sit on a towel.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
On TikTok, the main gist seems to be, on heavy days, I stay home, so I'll work from home, I'll choose to say no to social things, and I sit on a towel and I let my body do its thing.
Oh, that's terrific advance for the feminist cause, that women should halt their lives for several days every month. That's great for women.
It's interesting, isn't it, right? Because if you think about when I was young and the adverts for tampons were all very much about you can still go swimming, you can still play tennis, go, go, go. But there's been a cultural swing to like, well, why should women have to pretend that their life is going on as normal when they are bleeding heavily? Some evangelists of free bleeding say that it shortens periods and reduces cramps. There is no scientific evidence that that is the case. But one thing I'd love to know is, we've kind of in an age of destigmatizing periods, as I sort of joked about before, which a lot of people are saying is great. But is blood-stained everything the logical conclusion of sort of destigmatizing periods?
Okay, firstly, you say there's no evidence that obstructive things to catch your period has anything to do with cramping. That is not necessarily true. There is a little bit...
Oh, no, sorry. I meant there's no scientific evidence to say that free bleeding is necessarily better.
Yes, but there is some evidence that tampons, for example, because it's a foreign object and it's hitting against your vaginal walls, that can actually exacerbate pre-existing cramps. I thought that was a fun little fact. And if women, even anecdotally, feel like tampons increase their period pain, then all power to them for not using tampons. I reckon we all need to be honest with each other. I think we're all free bleeding a little bit. Like, I never know when my period is starting or finishing, so it's a game. It's a game.
Yeah, try having a marina.
I don't know. Sometimes it comes and then sometimes I decide on day 5, I go, you know what? It's over. And my period says, excuse me, I'm not over. And I say, yes, you are. All my undies have weird stains. And so I kind of think that this is the next logical conclusion of that. Also, I think the increase in free bleeding is from period undies. I think they've revolutionized the way that we think of periods, and that it's not necessarily the case. I mean, there are some radical people who want to sit on towels and not leave their house, but there are other people who are just thinking there's got to be more economical ways for me to deal with my period. And also, now that we're very aware of the climate and what things like pads and tampons do for the environment, we're taking on new ideas. The closer I looked at this, I think there's something really profound to it. Because menstrual activism has been a thing since before the days of Germaine Greer, but she particularly made it popular with the quote in The Female Eunuch, which was, if you think you are emancipated, you might consider the idea of tasting your own menstrual blood. If it makes you sick, you've got a long way to go, baby.
Germaine, I'm in trouble with Germaine for my ooh, aren't I? Oh, shit. I'm a bad feminist already.
I remember seeing that and being so disgusted and thinking, well, there's absolutely no way I'm ever going to feel comfortable consuming my bodily waste. There is an idea that we are so disgusted by our own bodies, by our own hair and our own fat and our menstruation. And a lot of it is to fulfill a capitalist agenda. Like, we need to feel disgusted in order for there to be an entire industry around.
Yeah, for us to then go and buy all the things that will like make us smell more acceptable, look more acceptable, not leave bloodstains all over the place.
And then there's the whole feminine hygiene industry, which we know we don't even need.
Sorry, I do need it. Like, speak for yourself. I'm quite happy with the feminine hygiene industry.
No, but there's a lot of products that we know are actually bad for women's vaginas.
My issue with this is I just think it's gone too far. It's gone too far. I think that it's one thing when women felt that they couldn't say the word period without everyone going, ew, or boys or men going, ew, that's disgusting. But it is an excretion. It is a bodily fluid in the same way sweat, snot, wee, and poo and mucus and all of those kinds of things are, right?
And boys eat their snot.
Well, so do some girls. Come on, hashtag not all men are snot eaters. But my point is that it drives me a bit nutty when things that have been designed to help us, to make us live easier lives, more convenient lives. Are we going to get rid of nappies? Are we going to get rid of toilet paper? Are we going to post pictures of ourselves weeing our pants? Are we just going to not use toilets? Are we just going to go home when we need to wee and just wee on the floor or wee in the garden or wee in the shower or poo in the garbage bin?
Okay,
where does
firstly,
it end?
Weeing in the shower is very normal. Secondly, I think...
No, I don't mean what. Yes, of course. I mean like you going, I need to go to the toilet. And instead of sitting on the toilet, going and weeing straight into the shower.
You're doing a very slippery slope argument, which I love for you. I love for you. But I know that you are very evolved. You are in terms of even like your feminist beliefs and your self-actualization about your body, you may be more evolved than other women. And the fact is there are a lot of women all over the world who feel shame and confusion about their period. There are people who believe that it's dirty. And how many women worldwide would get their period and believe that they were dying? Like there are still so many girls and women
I don't think
who
that's
would
what
think
we're talking
that.
about.
I agree with all of that, but what's it got to do with free
It
bleeding?
destigmatizes it.
Oh, come on.
But does it though? I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I examine my own ick at seeing visible period blood on my Instagram feed. You know what I mean? Like my ick came first and then I'm like, no.
But also, why do you need to see blood on your Instagram feed? Like, why? I don't need to see it. It doesn't emancipate me. I think it's attention seeking. There's a difference between stigma and private. Like there are some things that not everybody has to see, like toilet things.
I really get that it's kind of rewriting a narrative. I was thinking about this the other day, that I went through a phase in my life when I was a teenager of obsessively reading about Marilyn Monroe. And there was an anecdote that was in one of those books when I was young about her being in a tight white dress walking away from some photographers and her having a period stain on the back of her dress. And the reason that anecdote was in that story and really stuck in my head is it was trying to say she was messy and out of control. It was kind of being used as a code for a woman who was chaotic, like she couldn't keep hold of her period. You know what I mean? She didn't know. And I entirely understand we need to very much unpick that. And I think we have gone a really long way to it. But I also, I don't know, I kind of agree with Mia that there are some things that I don't know we need to fly the flag for. However, I say that I am delighted that period ads on TV now don't use the tinted blue water anymore and actually are admitting that that's not what comes out of our parts, because I think that confused a lot of young girls. But blood pride, I don't know.
I think it's one of those things where it has to go really, really far in order for the norm to land somewhere in the middle. So we need that quote from Jermaine Greer saying, taste your own menstrual blood. And you go, I personally don't think I need to do that, but I get what you mean, that we need to examine our own disgust.
Yeah, and we are also more aware now that everybody's period is not the same. So like a woman who might need to stay home on the days when her flow is really heavy and she's struggling, like that is easy to dismiss as like, oh, for God's sake, are we meant to just let women isolate themselves? But some women need to. So maybe it's good that that's normalised too.
But even the fact that Marilyn Monroe story, that there is shame, like we have probably all had that moment where we've either been paranoid that we've bled through our clothes or we actually have, and the shame you feel, and you wrap something around you, and no matter how confident you think you are, it's this moment that just elicits this huge, huge embarrassment. And I think the more that we can tackle that and examine that and think, hold on, it's not women's fault that they're bleeding.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be this binary of I'm just going to walk around the party with blood running down my legs and stains on the back of my dress, or I'm going to be mortified and hate myself. Like there's a middle ground, which is where I think most of us live and most of us would like to live, where it's like, oh God, that's a bit mortifying, because it's a private thing in the same way that we can talk about like bladder leakage and whatever. But if I, do a wee in my pants, I don't really want everyone to be able to see it because it's private. Is it a stain on my character forevermore? No, you don't have to be proud of everything.
But if we are kind of obsessed with keeping it private, the fact is it's not always going to be private. I wonder if any of this content is reaching men and if it's destigmatizing things for men. Because if you're a heterosexual man and you are having sexual relationships with women, you may come across a period at some point and you shouldn't be disgusted by it because it is not a biohazard. It is not going to make you sick. It is not going to spread a disease. It's just blood.
Every man who's had sex with an adult woman has encountered period blood, and I've yet to meet a man who's horrified by it.
Oh, I think there'd be some pretty interesting chats among men.
Tell us out louders.
What is a soft troll, and does it describe precisely all of us? This week I came across an article in Stylist called Rise of the Soft Troll, Why Do We Privately Pick Apart Strangers on the Internet, that explored this concept, and I'm ashamed to say I recognised myself immediately. The article begins by describing perhaps it's an influencer trying a bit too hard with her relatable content. Maybe it's a colleague who relentlessly overshares in her Instagram captions. Someone from school who won't stop sharing Facebook posts on what is surely a pyramid scheme. We might know them in real life or just critique them from afar, but we follow them for one reason, to judge and share screenshots in the group chat. The author of this article, Katie Rosinski, speaks to a number of people who admit to soft trolling and discusses whether the phenomenon is just the natural evolution of a modern form of gossip. She acknowledges that gossip can serve a social purpose when the information being shared is socially relevant and protective, and it can galvanise and unite vulnerable people. But is soft trolling at all valuable, or is it just completely toxic, Mia?
I mean, it's got a new name, but people have done this since the beginning of time. Like, it's just bitching about people, really. I think that the internet's changed a couple of things. Firstly, social media has meant that you can take those mean things that you say and turn them into performance for an audience. Mm-hmm. The difference between doing it privately in a group chat and doing it publicly is, firstly, the person who you're saying it about won't know. So it's far less harmful. And secondly, your intention is still not noble. I'm not going to defend it as noble. And yes, of course, I do it too. But it's less cruel than doing it in a performative, attention-seeking way to invite public ridicule and to say something about yourself that aren't you clever. Social media can be the worst of that, but I think it's human nature.
There's a woman I went to uni with who's now fully into like a pseudo-scientific MLM, and I can't look away, and I am constantly sharing screenshots of what she's posting, and I've analysed why I do it, and I think it's to get validation for my own worldview and confirm that what she's selling is bullshit, and I want to whinge about how these sorts of businesses exploit women who are desperate to make money quickly. I do think sometimes there is a bit more of a noble reason,
Clare,
and I think that I do it
Stevens.
from a sociological and psychological perspective. I just like
what
to
a load
analyse
of old
people.
nonsense. It's just gossip, right? And gossip serves a purpose. We all know this. They say that, you know, one of the reasons why negative gossip is more bonding than positive gossip is because it builds a bridge of trust, because you have to trust that the person who you're gossiping to is not going to rat you out and say, you'll never believe what Clare Stevens said about you. So we immediately build a bond when we're gossiping negatively. And I think that we all recognize ourselves in this, because I'm certainly guilty of it. We all do it all the time, where you're like, look at this thing that this person posted, look at this thing this person read. But I think that the rebrand of it as soft trolling and putting it in sharp relief to hard trolling, which I guess is public trolling, which is public criticism, there's no doubt that it's less harmful. Mia, you're 100% right. But it still isn't great, because we all know that everybody does this. It kind of creates this thrum of anxiety all the time about what people are really saying and what they're really thinking, which any schoolgirl would recognize as like people bitching about you behind your back instead of to your face, right? It's still bitching, and you still know people are doing it. So just because they're not saying it to you, and we all have had the experience of it sort of peeking its head above the calm water. Do you know what I mean? So you'll see somebody might send you a message by mistake, or oops, wrong chat. And you'll see like, oh shit. We've sort of touched on it before, but there's a whole site dedicated to this on the internet where people go and bitch about people on TV and all those things, and they pretending that they're doing it in a private group chat setting, but everybody knows it's there. So it still just makes people feel insecure and worried all the time about what people are really saying about them. Having just teased you for taking moral high ground, Claire, I think that ultimately we should be trying not to endlessly bitch negatively about people, and we would feel better.
I reckon what this article didn't pick up on is the intersection between soft trolling and hard trolling. The writer of this article tried to say there's no evidence that if you're soft trolling, you're then going to become a hard troll and, leave mean comments on somebody's posts or send them DMs or whatever. But I think the nature of the internet is that passive trolling becomes active. So if you are clicking on Daily Mail articles about an influencer that's snarky, you are contributing to a machine where they're then going to write more articles. If you're listening to a gossip podcast, that is, again, another form of just direct trolling, then you're telling that podcaster, yes, I care about this, I'm listening to it. So I think a lot of us think that there's an innocence and a passiveness to our trolling, but it's far more active than we'd like to acknowledge.
I want to ask the difference and for some clarity between gossip and trolling, because I don't see them as the same thing.
I think trolling is
negative,
snarkier and meaner, and there's more of a screenshotting, poking fun at it, whereas gossip is did you know that so-and-so did this?
Yeah, the classic example of soft trolling is that I post a picture of myself or whatever, and instead of you coming on to my feed and going, who do you think you are, you stuck-up bitch, you screenshot it, you post it in your group chat and go, look at this stuck-up bitch, who does she think she is? That's the difference.
No, I know what that is, but then how do you distinguish that from gossip? Because to me, gossip is more, this is the town that I think Holly Wainwright lives in, or I heard that Clare and Jessie are fighting and that none of those bitches on Out Loud like each other. To me, that's really different.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what you said, Claire, which really stuck out at me because I think this is true. You want confirmation of your worldview. So I find that when something upsets me or I have a strong reaction to it, I will go and post it in one of my group chats because I want somebody to meet me at that same level of negativity.
Yeah.
And that feels validating to my worldview, and that gives me a little hit of dopamine or serotonin, but then I feel a bit dirty.
I think that ultimately gossip does make us feel dirty. It's like eating too many salt and vinegar chips. The first ones are the most delicious and fantastic thing you've ever eaten. You get to the bottom of the bag, you feel sick, right? That's how I feel. I know personally, and of course I do it, I'm not pretending that I don't, that if I've been engaging in too much negative, even in our group chats or whatever, then it will keep me up at night. It will literally keep me up that level of the things I said. I don't know. It's not good for us.
It's because you're a nice person, fundamentally.
Engaging in that behaviour, that soft trolling, does reframe the way you're looking at everyone. So I'm then scrolling through Instagram, and instead of seeing something and going, that's annoying, and continuing to scroll, I am screenshotting it. I am going into my Photos app and getting the texture thing so that I can circle the bit I find annoying, and I'm drawing an arrow, and then I'm having a 5-minute conversation about that. And that is terrible for my well-being and the way I look at the world.
Based on insecurity.
Yeah.
I know that whenever I want to soft troll about something, it's because it's poked something in me that I feel insecure about.
Or particularly among Australians, it's people who are trying. People who are trying hard. I'm like, oh, look how hard that person's trying. And I bet people say that about me. It's such a horrible way to look at other people. The other point this article made that I thought was an interesting point was, is soft trolling water cooler gossip for the working from home generation?
Yeah, of course.
I took that bit out too. I think, yes. Oh, we're all living online in such a way that of course it is. It's this is office gossip. This is exactly the same as water cooler, except that in a water cooler setting, you still have to watch yourself a little bit because you're still in an open setting where you may be overheard, people might see you, people might go, oh, whereas in a group chat you feel possibly mistakenly really safe to let your flag fly until somebody screenshots that and sends it to your friends, which happens to school kids all the time.
And we've also seen some really unfortunate examples of when people's phone records are subpoenaed in court cases and defamation cases. And you look at it and I think everyone thinks, oh, there, but the grace of God go I, because when you think about what's in your text messages and how it would look, how hurtful it would potentially be if they got released into the world, that certainly gives you pause for thought. So should we try and do less soft trolling? Is that out loud? Is that what we should all take away from this?
I think so. I actually
or just be aware of when we're soft
But
trolling.
then what am I meant to do with my feelings? I don't know where to put them. If you want to make Mamamia Out Loud part of your routine 5 days a week, we release segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays just for Mamamia subscribers. To get full access, follow the link in the show notes, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers.
It's Friday, which means we're wrapping up with our best and worst moments of the week, and we've got a few doozies. Holly, can you kick us off with your worst of the week?
You two lived through my worst of the week. Had a little bit of a meltdown on Tuesday morning because of this, in fact. It was very silly worst and entirely on me. We've been doing the upfronts, as Out Louders know, which means basically Clare, Mia and I and others of the Mamamia family have been travelling and presenting to market about this is what Mamamia's got coming up. This is what, all that kind of stuff. It's been fantastic. You have to look a bit fancy when you're standing on a stage in front of lots of people, talking to them. And I have one pair of very fancy shoes that I have worn twice during upfronts. They are what we call sitting down shoes. They are not under any circumstances walking shoes. And I have lots of pairs of heels that you can walk in, but not these. Tuesday morning, the Uber that was taking me to where we were doing our thing dropped me off a block further away from where it was. And so I had to walk in my sitting down shoes for a block, and it was hot. When I got to the venue, I had a little meltdown. I'd only walked in them for like 10 minutes, and my feet were in agony, and I had these massive blood blisters on my feet.
Hole, you were doing some free bleeding from your feet.
And I was in such a state. People tried to talk to me, and I was just like, I can't.
Yeah.
I had a little meltdown. I wanted to have a cry.
She did.
Completely beside myself, all because of this stupid pair of shoes that I am now going to ceremoniously burn.
They looked really good though, and they went with your top. And so that's what was hard, was you kept saying my blood blisters, and I was like, but they look really
I
good.
think there's a place and a time for shoes that you can only walk short distances
Or
in.
not at all. Like you need to be carried. What I actually needed by that time was to be carried from the backstage room to the stage.
A Mariah Carey moment, yes.
Afterwards, our head of marketing, Rob, was like, come and do this interview. Come and talk to these people. And I was just like, I can't walk. It was so mortifying. And I have so many nice shoes. Anyway, that was my worst. My best. And I know, look, I was just singing the praises of positivity. It's not really nice that my best is that a man lost his job this week.
Schadenfreude, Holly Wainwright, but
soft trolling.
Spanish football coach Jorge Vilda lost his job this week. You might remember he is the coach of the Spanish women's football team, and Spain just won the Women's World Cup. So they reached the pinnacle of achievement in their sport, the biggest success ever. Their coach has just been fired because, as we have talked about on Out Loud, he is not a nice person. More than 15 of the players on that national team all refused to play while he was in charge. The Football Federation obviously decided to keep him in his job long enough that it took them to win the World Cup. Now he's been fired. Important distinction. He is not the guy who kissed the player. So he is not Luis Rubiales, who is still refusing to be fired. Even though he has been told to resign and stand down, he is like a little boy sitting there with his fingers in his ears going, nah, 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 nah. He is not stepping down. But the coach has been fired, and it made me happy because I thought, that's progress. That's what should happen. And interestingly, the Spanish Football Federation didn't comment in their statement. They didn't say why. They just did it. Actions, not words. I think it's great. That was my best.
Claire, what were your worst and bests of the week?
So my worst, I am on the record as being a lazy girl. I'm very, very, very lazy. and being lazy makes it hard to get things done. I ordered a rug weeks ago. Not a fancy rug, not an expensive rug, quite a cheap rug. And it is meant to be coming to my house. But the thing is, there's something broken with the post in Australia, and it's that things only get delivered in business hours. And I'm at work in business hours, and so is my partner. And then they're like, come collect it from the post office during business hours. And I'm like, that's a problem in that I'm still at work. And there is physically no way for me to get my hands on this rug. And you might say, Claire, actually, you work 3 days at Mamamia, you freelance the other days, you actually do have some time. Well, no, because I forget in those hours. And I only remember when I'm in the office.
So true.
And it's so stressful. I just don't know where this rug is. I think it's been at the post office and then been sent back.
I have lived through this several times being a fellow lazy girl, yes.
The thing is, in the last place I lived, you could kind of leave a package out the front and the postman would be like, it's probably going to be fine. The current place I live, you could not leave something outside because it's going to get stolen. It's like a thoroughfare. I almost just want to leave a note every time I order something online saying, leave it outside. If it gets stolen, that's on me. It's more likely for me to get it if it's just left there, and I trust the kindness of strangers.
Do you?
What I don't trust is myself to collect the thing I've ordered.
Hard relate.
So if anyone knows where my rug is, please let me know. I just need somebody to come to my house when I'm there. And when I can be bothered to answer the door.
I think it's tricky. I agree.
It's really hard. So anyway, any lazy girl solutions to those kind of life dilemmas, very welcome. But my best is we had Father's Day at my parents' house last Sunday. And Father's Day is a big one in my family because it's also my pop's birthday. He turned 96. 96. And it's Simon's birthday, my cousin, who a lot of people have probably heard of. So he turned 38. He was very excited because he got tickets to Wicked. Neither me or Jesse could take him. His carer took him. He had the best time ever. But it reminded me that day, kind of looking around, that our family is changing with partners and babies and dynamics as, you know, cousins are growing up and, you know, a cousin might actually cook something, not me, but some of my cousins, that the nature of those days are changing. And it was a good reminder that even though I can get very nostalgic about how, like, my family is not the same as it was when I was a teenager, and sometimes I really miss living at home and I miss all the time I got to spend with my brothers. There's so much to look forward to.
Yeah.
There's kind of another era of family to come, and I think those days remind you how important it is to turn up and to keep doing those days even when, you know, you're going through tough periods and people might be sick, or it might feel like that things are changing. It reminded me things are changing in
Good ways
positive
as well.
direction. Simon was in great form. He met Luna for the first time, so they had a very big cuddle, and he also did a jig when his birthday cake came out. So he just had the best day. It was really nice, and it was Luca's first Father's Day.
It was.
I gave him a hug. It was
iconic.
Weird. It was weird.
My worst this week is burnout. I'm so tired on such a deep level. As Holly said, we've been doing our upfronts, and so I'm tired on a surface level because we've been doing a lot of traveling, a lot of talking at these big events, and it's quite stressful, and I'm tired and drained, but also like the level under that, the level under that, the level under that. And it's because, I mean, a lot of people will understand this. Like when you run a business, you just have to keep going. You can be burnout, but it's not even an option to just take a holiday. Not that I can't take holidays, and I've taken holidays this year and I'm going to be taking more time off. But fundamentally, the pressures of running a business that lead to you feeling burnt out are not alleviated ever, as long as you own that business. So it's not even that you can look forward and go, oh, you know what? I need to make a life change. I'm going to change my job or, you know, choose a different life. particularly when you've got, we've got a company and hundreds of people work here. And so there's no answer to it. It's not a crisis. It's just a feeling burnt out.
Do you find that when you're burnt out, so you can't stop in the way that some people do, like stop and reset, you're not a big holiday person?
No, though I've been getting better.
You've been getting better.
You have got better at holidays.
Yeah.
But for a lot of your career, you weren't a holiday person. Do you just work through burnout and then what happens?
You have to, and that's why it gets worse and worse. And it's not just me. It's like, you might have a chronically ill child. There's lots of reasons why people are burnt out, and I acknowledge my privilege in the way I'm burnt out, you know what I mean? But one of the things that causes me to feel burnt out is repetition, doing the same thing over and over and over. It's a specific type of creative burnout. Other people get it too, and for me, there's so much repetition involved in running a business because there's always new people joining. You're always having to go over the same things. That's one of the things that just exhausts me the most, and there's no other option.
What's fixed it in the past? I mean, not fixed, it's the wrong word, but you've been here before. You've been running this business for a really long time. What helps?
Having ADHD helps because I bounce back quickly, but each time I'm just getting sort of more tired. What helps is throwing myself into something new creatively. The things we announced at Upfronts were launches of some new content initiatives and new podcasts and various things. So what I like to try and do when I'm feeling like this is take a break for some of the things that I've been doing for a really long time and challenge myself and do some new creative things. So that's my plan for the next few months.
You're on the brink of something new. Like you're very good with your instincts. Even like I remember that Lady Startup when you sort of had instincts about that and then you threw yourself into that. I feel like you're on the brink.
Oh.
We should all just be waiting for the next Mia Freedman era.
To emerge from the chrysalis.
Yeah.
My best was also Upfronts. It was traveling with you guys.
Yeah, it was great.
One of my favourite things is traveling with you, and I've not travelled with you before really, Clare, much. Holly, Jessie and I, of course, travel quite a lot for Out Loud, and we've travelled before for Upfronts, but it was just really fun. And we also had Lee Campbell and Elfie Scott and Harry Jack, who's our head of creative, and it was just funny. I mean, I do a particular thing when we're traveling because I just like to talk a lot and shop a lot, except when I don't, and then I just put on my headphones and I don't want to speak to anybody. But what I really enjoy, like Out Louders, if you like the show, I know a lot of people sort of talk about the banter and the chemistry that we have, right? And you would think that on a daily podcast that we've hosted, Holly and I have hosted this together for so many years, you would think we would run out of things to talk about. Oh, no. Oh,
Never,
no.
ever.
I get so excited by all of these pockets of time at airports, in lounges, in Ubers, green rooms.
She always wants to
rehearsals.
fight. Just before we go out on stage, she wants us to fight about something, always.
Yeah.
I know I'm doing my predictable thing of being like Pollyanna cheerleader, but the thing that was great about Upfronts, though, it is exhausting and it is a lot of work. But far out, I feel so proud doing those things. And you should feel so proud, Mia Freedman, to stand in those rooms with all those people who've come to hear what you and your people are saying about Australian women, all the things we're making. It's such an amazing thing. Like, it really is.
Not once do I feel proud. It's so weird.
Oh, my God.
I had another friend ask me about this. He's like, do you ever sit back and just go, wow, look? And I'm like, not for 1 second in one day.
If I could go in your head and tinker around, I'd give you a bit of that.
I wish you would.
Because I do that. Like, I mean, I know it's different. It's not my business. But, like, I am so proud of what we do every day. Like, I'm so proud. There you go. I said it.
That's nice. That was a good therapy session. Thanks for bearing with us, Out Louders.
Yeah, good. I have a recommendation before we go, and it's actually a circular recommendation, which is always the best kind on Out Loud. So I've been travelling a lot, been away a lot, but Brent and I had a weekend together last week, and he's been away too, so we've been like ships in the night. Our main bonding activity, like many tired couples I know, is watching something together. And you know how you often you'll have a show you're watching and they've got a show they're watching, and then you have a show you watch together. We'd come to the end of the show we were watching and I needed another one. So I went in the Out Louders and I said, give me some good shows to watch together. And the Out Louders delivered, and they gave me such a long list. And the one I'm recommending, because that Saturday night we sat down to watch it and we ended up sitting up way too late watching about 5, was Mr. In Between.
Tell us a little bit about why you're here.
My name is Ray, I'm 40, got a kid.
Do you think that you've got an anger problem?
No. There's people in this world who will take and take till there's nothing left here.
Whoa!
Man, why don't you watch where you're going, eh?
What was that?
You gotta fight back, you know? Always better to give than receive.
Is it?
It's an Australian show that is quite old now. It started in 2018. I think there are 3 seasons. And it is about a suburban hitman, which is also a trope that is, you know, a little bit done, but it's so good. The hitman's called Ray Shoesmith, and he's played by the co-creator of this, who's a guy called Scott Ryan. And he's like juggling his career in dodgy organised crime with being a boyfriend, a dad to his daughter, a brother, all the things.
Is it funny?
It's funny, it's dry, it's insightful. It is violent, like you would hate it, Mia. It has violence in it, but it's really interesting. So, for example, he's in this anger management group he got sentenced to by the court, and he's a hitman who murders people, right? But he's in there and he's disgusted that all the guys he's in there with are domestic violence perpetrators, most of them. And he's coming to terms with that. But then towards the end of the first season, he's like, his own misogyny is kind of being pointed out to him by the facilitator because he kind of thinks, well, I'm not that guy. It's really interesting. It works on lots of levels. Anyway, I'm loving it. The Outlouders were right. It's on binge. There are 3 seasons. Mr. In Between. So good.
If you're looking for something else to listen to, on yesterday's subscriber episode, we had a very interesting conversation and learnt about an unexpected ADHD symptom that Mia experiences. Mia gets quite candid and shares how entering a shopping centre is a very different experience for her and people with ADHD.
It's true. It's about the connection. This is based on a big New York Times story that came out this week based on the connection between ADHD and shopping addiction.
I sat in that conversation and thought, hard, can't relate, and that's why I find it so fascinating. So we have a big conversation about that kind of impulse control and how it can reveal itself.
And how some of us don't have it.
Yes.
But we've got lots of clothes.
There's a link to that episode in the show notes. Thank you for listening to Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. This episode was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman, and we've had audio production by Leah Porges. We'll see you on Monday.
Bye.
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 Shout out to any Mamamia subscribers listening. If you love the show and want to support us, subscribing to Mamamia is the best way to do so. There's a link in the episode description.